Hi, I'm Kathryn Delaney, and as promised, I am going to bring you an astrological forecast for this weekend, brought to you by the Fool, the Lovers, and the Hierophant. Why is it brought by them? Because they were the cards for today's reading, and the Fool is related to Uranus. The Lovers typically is associated with Gemini, but that's ruled by Mercury, so we have the mercurial force as well. And the Hierophant, which is ruled by Taurus, is actually the Uranus is actually in Taurus right now. So I took a deeper look at what was going on astrologically today, just because often I find that when the cards come up that represent certain planetary influences or zodiacs symbols, that it is bringing my attention to look at what's going on in the sky at that moment. Because if you just a little bit of background, I guess, on astrology and astrological transits. So let's see if I have any of my little tools around. I have a few different tools that I'm trying to work on to share more information and education around astrology so people understand how it works. But if we were to look at our astrological system as a clock, right, we have all these different symbols that rule this clock. There's actually 12 different houses in this clock, and they're all associated with a specific zodiac sign. And as time shifts, right, like this would move in a circle, and the planets that are in the sky are going to be moving through this system as well. So for instance, if we look at the Earth's orbit around the sun, it's going to take 365 days to move around the sun, right? If we look at Pluto, which is really far reaching out into our galaxy and our star system, it takes 248 years to move around the sun in its orbit, and it's an elliptical orbit, so it doesn't move around in the same kind of time frame. Like, it moves because part of its orbit is further, it takes longer to go around that part, and then it takes less time to move around the inner part, if that makes sense. And it takes Jupiter 12 years to move around the zodiac system, and Saturn 29 and a half years to move around our star systems around the sun in its orbit. So it's moving through these different signs at a different pace. And when they sync up, like when the planets sync up, it's almost like, and this visual came to me, and I feel like it's really useful. It's almost like you had this lock of sorts that had different grooves in it, and when it's like a dimensional lock, so it has 9 different levels, and when they sync up, it's almost like it drops into this noticeable shift in our entire world system, because we're all influenced by the planetary bodies. On a really small scale, we can see on our Earth, on our planet that we exist and live on, that the full versus new moon has an effect on the tides and the water of our planetary system. And just like it has an effect on the tides, it also has an effect on our water in our bodies, because we have an abundance of water in our own system and need water to move things around our system. As a side note, when I used to work at a lot of coffee shops, we would have police officers come in and confirm that on full moons there was a lot more activity going on that they had to deal with, and kind of like off the wall stuff. So people are affected by the moon, the cycles of the moon, because it does affect our emotional body that is ruled by water. So much like that, we can draw out our understanding and our perspective to see that the other planets that are in our star system have a relationship with each other that can be combative or supportive. And depending on where they are and how they sync up together in that, you know, grand kind of lock time system, they can reset certain things because they don't always sync up in the same way. And when they are aligned in certain like angles, you know, whether it's positive or negative, and how they line up with each other can largely affect what's happening. And that's what we're all seeing this year, you know. So in January 12th, we had a major conjunction, also known as a stellium, or a grouping of planets that were together in one of those pies of the zodiac system, right, in Capricorn. So they were all up in here. And I drew it out in a different way after drawing those cards today and what's going on now, as opposed to what's going on or what was happening in January. But if you can imagine like this kind of seesaw that, and I apologize for the boxes in the background. I'm in the midst of moving, so I have a lot of boxes that are surrounding me right now. But if you can imagine, like, for instance, I made this in January. So if you can see this as an orb, and if you see this crystal in the center kind of as the sun, you can see this grouping of stones over here, right here. And there were literally, like, each one of these is representing a different planet. So we have Mars, we have Jupiter, we have Mercury, we have Saturn, and we have Pluto. Or we have Saturn and we have Pluto, which is the farthest one out here. And so all of these planets literally synced up together and like kind of started this like timer, if you want to call it that. And what's interesting now is that Mars has now moved like over here, and now it's in Aries. So it's actually in a square relationship with what started in January. And so it was almost like something got started in January, and then now we're starting to see a lot of friction with what happened in January. So to just, you know, give some perspective on all of this, I drew up a little diagram of what's happening right now. So let's see. So the stellium that happened in January, because Mars and Mercury, which were part of that stellium, are a lot faster moving planets, they aren't part of that grouping right now. But the slower moving planets, which is Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn, are all up here still in Capricorn. So Capricorn is the sign that is our social system. Personally, on a like personal chart, it's your life path and your career path and how you are out in the world. But out as far as like a global scenario, it represents, or at least like the 10th house represents that for you individually, like your life path, things like that. And it's ruled by Capricorn, right? So Capricorn on more of a social scale is the social system and social order, and where Earth, right, like where the Earth energy is a cardinal energy, like it's the purest form of the Earth energy, which is like stability, where we put stability in our social order. And that's had these three planets sitting together pretty closely since January. And they're still sitting there now. And the planets that we have there are, you know, slow moving planets, which means that they cause really big shifts on a wider scale. So first of all, we have, you know, Jupiter, which is this big, the planet that brings like typically like generosity, and it's like the Santa Claus of the zodiac. It's a big energy, it's a big planet, it's like the sun within the sun, so to speak, right? So it has a very like generous energy to it, and yet it's sitting in a house that is a Capricorn house, which is not its favorite house to be in. Then we have Pluto, which is the planet of transformation and big changes, like planetary like shifts. And when Pluto was discovered was right around the time when we developed nuclear energy. So it has this force to it that's transformational, and transformational in a sense of like almost near like explosive, unchanging, like you can't go back kind of an energy. And then we have Saturn, which Saturn is in its house of rulership, because Saturn is a planet of responsibility and authority, and it is in Capricorn, which is its, you know, natural house, because it takes responsibility to follow your life path. But having these three energies together is not a very fun energy, and we can see how that's been reflected in what we've been going through right now, and our whole you know, global situation with this widespread virus and how our governments have been dealing with that. Okay, so this is happening right now, and what's also happening simultaneously is that we have Mars, as I showed you in the little orb, how Mars has shifted and now it's in a square relationship. So Mars was up here in January, and now it's over here. So now Mars is in Aries, and it's in a 90-degree relationship or a square relationship with what's going on over here. So whereas before, you know, Mars is the energy of our first sense of like will, like who we are, our sense of self, and how we are out in the world, and our motivating force to do things and accomplish things, like, and move out of our like house and do things. Like, it's Aries, right? It's like this warrior kind of energy, and it's in I'm sorry, it's Mars. It's this warrior kind of energy in Aries, which is its natural house, but it doesn't like the restriction of what's going on over here. This square relationship is definitely a restricting energy on that fiery willfulness of self, and we're all seeing that right now. And then square to that, right now we have, or we don't have it right now, like this moment, because right today the moon is in 8 degrees of Cancer down here, but it is a pretty fast moving planetary body. So it, you know, or I should say satellite of the Earth. So it will actually be in direct cardinal square in this relationship here tomorrow. And this, you know, Cancer is like our tribe, our home, how we get along with people, like our family. And we have the moon, which is like a sense of nurturing and emotional, you know, interactions, and how we get along in that space and how we feel in that space. And so it's in square relationship to this Mars energy and this force up here, the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter force. But that's not all. Over here in Libra, in the fourth, you know, peg of the table, so to speak, we have the sun, and the sun is in 16 degrees of Libra right now, but it'll be in conjunction with, or not in conjunction, in direct square relationship with this moon, which is moving into placement tomorrow, Mars, and these 3 planets up here. So we have, like, literally the table is set. We have the 4 pegs of the table. So what's on that table? Well, what's on that table is these guys that, you know, wanted to make their presence known earlier. So we have Uranus, which is over here, which is in conjunction, or I'm sorry, in opposition to Mercury, which is over here, and they're sitting at this table. And Uranus is the planet, as I said in the reading today, it's the planet of unexpected change, and it changes situations that are outgrown and long overdue for change. Okay, and then in opposition to that, we have, and granted, you know, Uranus bringing that energy and has brought that energy to this area of Taurus, which is, you know, like Uranus moved into the house of Taurus and wanted to create change. And the house of Taurus is our value system, how much money we have on hand, how we take care of the body. On a global scale, it's our agricultural system, it's our food, it's, you know, when like how agriculture is developed and treated. And Uranus is bringing change to that area. And it's bringing change to that area of personal lives as well. It's been doing that for the last year and a half, and it will continue to do that for another 4.5 years because it moves through each sign for 7 years. Okay, so we have Uranus sitting at this table, and then across the table we have Mercury. Mercury's in Scorpio. So Scorpio is an energy of transformation and change and creativity and you know, like a lot of times like hidden things, because it's energy that's associated with, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, taboo subjects, metaphysical subjects, things that are kind of beyond the veil. And in that house, we have Mercury. And Mercury is a planet of perception and how we describe things and how we see things and how we communicate about things. And so we have this kind of reflective energy right now happening, you know, across the table, so to speak, between Uranus and Mercury, which is pretty interesting. Now, when we look at what's going on with the other planets that are sitting at this table within this system, we have Venus, which is in a trine relationship with Uranus. So Venus is, you know, our relationships. It's sitting in the house that, or it's sitting in the placement of the sky that is ruled by Virgo. Virgo is a very like analytical, like criticizing energy, and that it looks at details and fine details and pays attention to details, and is also a health and wellness oriented energy. So it's the sign that rules like preventative health, and also like small pets and group environments, like work environments, your actual work environment. And Venus is sitting in this house, and it's in a trine, or, you know, a 90-degree angle, or no, 120-degree angle of relationship with the Uranus. So we see this shift that's actually happening in our work situation that can be considered for the better, even though a lot of people have been struggling over the last few months. We're starting to realize that the changes are now starting to shift things because we're having a beneficial energy happen in this house that's related to our work environment and self-care. And we're starting to look at things and value things a lot differently, you know, because it's these guys, because they're both in Earth, right? So it's a trine relationship. They aren't in a trine relationship with these folks up here because these guys are like in 18, 22, and 25 degrees. So they're a little further in the house. They're like moving out of the house. They won't actually move out of that house until December. So that's when we're going to start seeing a lot more shifts in what's happening as far as like the restrictions around how we are in society and how we can be with each other. And what's interesting is that we're actually going to have the Saturn and the Pluto both shift into that house. And so, you know, there will be big shifts there. Now, when we look at Neptune, which is hanging out over here, Neptune and the moon are going to move into a trine relationship tomorrow as well, because as I said, the moon is a really fast moving planetary object or satellite of the Earth. And so it's going to be, right, like today it's at 8 degrees and Neptune is at 18 degrees. Neptune moves a lot slower because it's a planet that's further out in our star system. The moon moves a lot faster, so it's going to be moving into a trine relationship with Neptune over the weekend. And so we will see, and because Neptune is in Pisces, which is its natural rulership, and the moon is in Cancer, which is its natural rulership, there's like this revealing of karmic things that's happening this weekend, and possibly like the revealing of secrets, because the 12th house is naturally ruled by skeletons or rules over like skeletons in the closet and things that need to be revealed. So there's a lot happening right now, when you consider, like, it's almost like we're sitting down to a family dinner and we're like finally forced to have this intervention around like what's been happening, and there's been like all these secrets happening in the household, and things are revealed, like things are just like opened up, and it's out of a lot of shifts and a lot of chaos. And as I was saying the other day, when Aries showed up in the reading, and I was like, wow, Mars is in Aries and somebody's got to create order out of this chaos. This is like, the table is set for us to create order out of this chaos. And what are we going to change in our life? And what are we going to shift in our life? And what do we witness? And what do we see while we're sitting at that table? So a lot is going on right now, and I just want to put that perspective out there because I feel like these guys wanting to draw our attention to that, and to consider like what is at the base and foundation of our table, what's important to us, and how do we want to build things after everything that we see gets revealed, like, and how do we respond to that? Well, we have to follow our heart, so, and believe in ourselves and know that what we're called to do in that moment is ultimately what we need to do, and to not let being part of some kind of social group or political group or something like that keep you away from what your heart tells you is actually necessary to do. So, it's like when you sit down at the table and you have people in your family or people sitting at the table that are always going to throw a fit and always going to cause trouble, and how do you have compassion for them while sitting at the table and explaining where you're coming from and what's the most important thing as we move forward in the future. So this is the astrological weekend forecast for this weekend that starts, I guess, today, October 9th through the 11th. But these planetary shifts will be affecting us for a while. Of course, Mars is a pretty fast moving planet. But the other bigger guys that are more far reaching, they are slower moving, and they'll be shifting in December. So ultimately, right around the time of the winter solstice, that's when we're going to be seeing a bigger shift globally. And between now and then, it's like we're having the conversation at the table, if that makes sense. So, of course, when it comes to you and how these planets are affecting you, it really depends on your natal chart, because when you were born, these planets were in specific houses for you. And how these planets are moving now are creating aspects or relationships with those planets that were in your chart when you were born. And when you were born, for instance, you also had an ascendant. And so if for instance, you have a sun sign of, like, for me, if I use myself as an example, I have a sun sign of Scorpio, right? Like my 42nd birthday is coming up in just a couple weeks. But when I was born, because I was born at, you know, an early hour in the morning, the ascendant is actually like what was like the sunrise snapshot moment of the day that I was born. And so I have I have Virgo on my ascendant. So I have a Virgo rising. But the planets were all in a different place around this chart, right? So whereas like the natural rulership of the star system would be Aries over here, and then Taurus, and then Gemini and Cancer, and then Leo and Virgo, and Libra and Scorpio, and then we have Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. When I was born, I actually had Virgo over here as my rising sign. So for me, with Virgo over here, I have all those planets sitting down here in my 5th house. So that's affecting me in a different way than where it would affect you if, for instance, you had like a Taurus rising and you wanted to see where, you know, all those energies would be up here in your 9th house. So it's and how it would be affecting you would be much differently. So if you're interested in looking at that, please, you know, reach out to me or either another astrologer, and we'll look at how the astrological transits are affecting you. And then, of course, I also offer tarot readings, and take a snapshot of what's going on with people's transits at the beginning of the reading, as long as my client knows when they were born, and of course where they were born, and all their information for their birth data. I'm also a nutritionist and an aromatherapist. I make a lot of my own skincare and offer and sell it currently on Etsy, although that may be changing soon. And I'm also an herbalist. So I offer people the invitation to drink more herbal teas, nervines, and nutritive teas right now, and to maybe go to your local apothecary and find one, because I think we all could use some nutrition on a very simple scale, as long as good foods. So yeah, reach out to me or someone else who can help you nurture yourself. I send you so much love, and I hope this astrological forecast was useful. If you would like any videos on other things that I do, or more information on astrology, or, you know, tarot, or medicine making, or how to prepare certain foods, or aromatherapy, information on essential oils and herbs, let me know, because I'd love to make a video and share it with you. I just want to make sure that's something that you'd like. I hope you have a blessed weekend, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care and stay well.